Jackass is one of the longest standing film franchises of all time, with the first installment being released in 2002 and the latest installment being released in 2022. Jackass has managed to make a franchise relevant over 2 decades, and yet when critics praise Jackass, there's an inkling of guilt in their accolades.
But I did think there was something oddly charming. I can't believe I'm even saying that.
I can't believe you're saying it.
About it.
I'm very disappointed.
I'm sorry.
Doug Walker of Channel Awesome said about Jackass Forever, not high art, granted, they were probably high when they made it, but a lot of fun. Matt Gladsby of Total Film said about Jackass 3D, is this the future of cinema? Let's hope not. But the concept of grown men debasing themselves for your viewing pleasure proves worthy of one more go-around. Critics use terms such as check your brain at the door, or guilty pleasure when describing a Jackass film, despite the franchise being relevant for 20 years. Moreover, comedy tends to be one of those genres where it's hard to recapture lightning in a bottle. Bad Santa, The Hangover, Coming to America, and countless other comedies all struggled with their sequel counterparts. The question becomes, what are the elements of Jackass that critics are glossing over that enabled the franchise's longevity? Or in other words, is there an artistry to Jackass behind its crass humor? Jackass blossomed in a time where audiences felt they needed to strip back entertainment. Looking at rock music, the 80s were the decade of hair metal, leather outfits, face paint, epic rock solos. Moving into the 90s, rock became more stripped down. The leather outfits became t-shirts sometimes complemented by plaid. The face paint went away. The epic guitar riffs became more stripped down power chords. This change allowed for audiences to connect more easily with the music. The same can be said for cinema. Indie movies like Slacker, Clerks, and The Big Lebowski started emerging in the early to mid-90s. Filmmakers like Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg were exploring the possibilities of minimalistic cinema. In the latter half of the 90s, the Blair Witch Project became one of the most profitable films of all time. Emerging during this transitional period was Jackass and later Jackass the Movie. Being born from reality and minimalist comedy allowed for Jackass films to evolve more easily than mid-budget narratives such as The Mask. As a matter of fact, the Jackass films tend to emulate the stages of the cast's life. Jackass the Movie was a movie about skater punks living on the outskirts of society, finally getting their big breaks. Jackass number 2 came around when the cast members were at the height of their fame and the height of their addictions. And as a result, it's the wildest film of the series. Jackass 3D was the most expensive movie of the franchise and came out when the crew was well established. The movie feels more like a flex, using 3D as a way to brag about their success. And finally, Jackass Forever is about the crew coming to terms with their older age. Jackass Forever had the most severe injuries of the series, and you can tell that the crew had been distant for a while prior to the making of the film. Prior to the release of Jackass Forever, audience members were afraid, could this just be a bunch of old men trying to chase the past? But inherently, Jackass is not designed that way. It constantly evolves with the cast because it's rooted in reality comedy. Knoxville has stated in several interviews that he grew up in front of the television. This love of cinema is apparent in the Jackass films. Knoxville and the crew often pay homage to the greats that came before them, such as Buster Keaton and the Three Stooges. The crew also parodies movies like Rocky and Godzilla, and we all know that parody is the ultimate form of flattery. When the Jackass crew pays tribute to these films, it never really feels like they're making fun of the film, mostly because the humor is usually directed towards themselves. And just an aside that dawned on me while watching Jackass Forever, in a time where tributes to cinema tend to be lazy callbacks, it really felt good to see a movie do a reference to an existing franchise and put a unique spin on it that fit the tone of the film. As a film fan, it's much more enjoyable to see how the Jackass guys are going to put their spin on a certain property, rather than seeing Harrison Ford mumble his way through some half-assed dialogue. Anyway, this love of cinema can also be seen in the selection of cameos featured in the films. John Waters was a notorious filmmaker known for making controversial cinema, much like the Jackass crew. Lo and behold, he makes an appearance in Jackass number 2. The same can be said for characters such as Rip Taylor, Jake Chandrasekhar, and Mike Judge. Just like the people Jackass pays tribute to, the crew struggled with critics for a while. The Three Stooges was perceived as very lowbrow humor by critics back in the day. The same can be said for the early portion of John Waters' catalog. Looking at the Jackass films on Rotten Tomatoes, the first film was actually rotten, with a 49 approval rating. And then the final film was actually certified fresh, with an 85% score. This leads me to believe that Jackass will be remembered as a work of genius, rather than some trashy entertainment for the masses. Critics are quick to say that Jackass is just people doing stupid stuff, but I'd like to think that there's something in the cast performances that draws the audience. Johnny Knoxville has really good comedic timing. People are quick to dismiss him as a performer because of failed film efforts like Action Point and The Dukes of Hazzards. His improv skills and comedic timing are actually pretty good even in the face of pain.
Is Butterbean okay?
As far as other cast members, Chris Pontius is really charismatic in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. I die of laughter whenever the crew doesn't know how to end a skit, so they just have Pontius ad-lib.
Shit! Dude, I knew we shouldn't have done this at my fucking dad's house. He's already pissed about me fucking skipping school. He's gonna cut me off. And that's coming out of my allowance.
Jeff Tremaine and Johnny Knoxville do a great job creating situations that work to different cast members' strengths. I love how Wee Man is constantly paired with Preston due to their size differences. I love how Dave England is the designated poo stuntman. I love how Aaron McGee tries to do some Super Dave Osborne type character and the other cast members dismiss it. Johnny Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine know exactly how to pull the strings to make the best out of a situation. It's not a bunch of people just showing up to the job and doing a stunt. There's actually a lot of creative decisions that happened prior to the stunt, and those clever decisions contributed to the franchise's success. So just to wrap up this video, I know to most Jackass fans this is all obvious. There's a reason why they gained a following. However, critics seem to gloss over how much thought goes into that raw style, the clever homages, and the creation of funny situations. I know this might be the end of Jackass, but I'm sure if Jeff Tremaine pursues other endeavors, they will find success. I'm one of the few people who actually enjoyed the movie The Dirt, and a lot of people in my circle of friends enjoyed it as well. And an aside, in case you were wondering how I would rank the Jackass movies, it would be number 1 Jackass the movie, number 2 Jackass 3D, number 3 Jackass number 2, and number 4 Jackass Forever. I love them all pretty equally though. Jackass the movie was my introduction to Jackass. I remember watching it when I was pretty young and it really stuck with me. I also like how raw it feels and looks. It was shot with cameras that are mostly used for skateboarding videos, so it has a really nostalgic look to it. And Jackass 3D has a special place in my heart because I remember going to my friend's house and renting it on pay-per-view when his parents weren't home. Jackass Forever is probably my least favorite of the bunch, but I still enjoyed it thoroughly enough to watch it twice in the cinema. So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys later.